Welcome back to Watchbox Studios and Watches Tonight. I am your host, Tim Mosso. You'll have to forgive me, my amplitude's a little low in the wake of SIHH. I'm going to have my oil can close at hand. Welcome to our audience from around the world, already joining in the live chat. This evening, we're talking SIHH lessons learned, the shocking rumors of a potential Patek Philippe full company sale, Patek watches, totally unrelated as an investment vehicle, cures for the Salmon Dial Royal Oak Jumbo Blues, the stealth arrival of the long-awaited El Primero 2 chronograph caliber, and Wither Mont Blanc watches. All of that and your wrist shots tonight on Watches Tonight. All right, I want to emphasize there is no better place than thewatchbox.com to buy, trade, and sell your watches, especially when you're ready to sell. We make it fast, we pay cash, and we make it fun. We also love to trade, and we're open 24 hours a day. It's how I shop for my watches. I'll also add that I will pay you for the pleasure. You've got to be in it to win it. Click the link in the description. I am giving away a $2,000 Breitling Colt Sky Racer. It's a chronometer, it's bright light, it's the upscale daily driver when you don't want to sync to a Timex Ironman or a Casio G-Shock. All right. Before we jump headlong into the broadcast, help me to fill the gap, Tim_Mosso on Instagram. My goal is 50K in 2K19, and only you can help me to get there. I'm still posting SIHH videos every single day, several times a day, so join me where I live when I'm not here on the web. Viewer wrist shots. Colin B gets our post-SIHH program rolling with his Swatch System 51 Hackett. Russell K shoots for the moon and the sun and the Earth with his Ulysse Nardin Tellurium Johann Kepler. That's probably the wrist shot of the year. But the year is young. Abdul R dives into winter with his Tudor Black Bay in Germany's Black Forest. And Taylor U turns back time with his Bulova Accutron Space View tuning fork watch. I own a caliber 214 myself. Send your wrist shots to Monday Mailbag at thewatchbox.com to see your pieces on these pixels. Quick hits leading off. And lately breaking, is Patek Philippe, the whole company, for sale? According to Bloomberg, possibly. An article appeared on Bloomberg this morning at 5 a.m., or approximately 5 a.m., and it broached two issues that analysts at Berenberg Bank of Switzerland had brought up. Now, the first was chatter about Patek management stability at SIHH. That's top-level stuff, but it's also tabloid fodder, so I don't want to get too deep into that. But second, and more substantively, speculation has arisen concerning an equity stake sale or outright divestiture by current ownership, with Patek potentially worth $10 billion on the open market, based on annual sales estimate of 1.5 billion Swiss francs a year. Now, the writer, Corinne Gretler, routinely covers the luxury watch space, so she's not new to this, and she was at SIHH, so she's speaking or writing from experience. Who could be a buyer? Well, first, LVMH and Kering have to be considered. LVMH is a $42 billion a year luxury conglomerate that has a relatively small exposure to the watch space. Compared to its accessories, LVMH's Hublot, Tag Heuer, and Zenith brands don't mean a whole lot compared to what Patek Philippe could bring to the company. And there's not a whole lot of overlap, as Hublot, Tag, and Zenith don't really cover the same ground or clientele as a Patek Philippe. Bulgari operates in a separate sphere, and stylistically, again, there's not a whole lot of overlap or duplication there. Kering, which owns UN and Girard Perregaux, has an even smaller exposure to watches, and those brands aren't going to pose any kind of a threat or internal conflict to a Patek Philippe. For a company previously almost entirely concerned with timber, that would be an enormous upgrade for Kering. But remember, the 2017 sale of Breitling to CVC Capital Partners of London proves that even private equity can be lured in by strong brand names and luxury sector profit margins. Finally, remember that there's a whole world of Middle Eastern sovereign wealth funds. Heck, every country worth its currency, respectively, has a sovereign wealth fund. There are even some states in the U.S. that have sovereign wealth funds in their own way today. So almost anyone could be a buyer on the open market. Here's the thing. We might also see a different scenario whereby the Sterns sell some stake while retaining control. Look at the FP Journe 20% stake sale to Chanel as your guide. FP Journe retains control of his company, gets a nice cash buffer, his nest egg if he ever wants it, and at the same time, Chanel gets something valuable and a foot in the door of high, and I mean top-level horology. The same could happen at Patek. If the company's worth $10 billion, maybe Thierry Stern could sell 40%, $4 billion in the bank, and then he's got a hedge against the possibility that his kids may or may not want to inherit the business and run it. He retains control. He's still the head honcho. He's still signing all the autographs and taking the selfies at Basel. So that's a different possibility, but a Patek Philippe sale would be monumental. In the same hands, the Sterns, since emerging from bankruptcy in 1932, Patek has been a rock of stability, and whichever way it goes, I hope it's for the best. Now, Gamel A. writes, Tim, I'm in love with the salmon dial Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Extra Thin from SIHH, but I suspect the price will be as colossal as the wait list, and only 75 pieces will be made. Do I have legitimate alternatives of the same quality? Oil can. Thanks for asking this, Gamel, because I'm sure that many have been wondering exactly the same thing. For those just joining this particular wild goose chase, AP softened the blow of its milquetoast Code 1159 dress watch collection by releasing an army of crowd-pleasing Royal Oak variants, from 38mm chronographs to the particular darling of the show, and it was the salmon dial white gold 15202. AP absolutely brought it if you cover this particular face. Now here's the thing. The hit was initially going to be a 75-piece run for factory boutiques, and the cost will be $55,400 US. So it's going to be a rare watch, and it's going to be a tough one to get unless you're totally friends with your AP factory store owner. So here's the thing. I've heard through the grapevine that AP has walked back the initial statement of 75 pieces for one model year to 75 pieces each model year, and that they walked it back again to essentially unlimited but boutique exclusive, which leaves us in a position where you might want to change your thought pattern and maybe get on a wait list. But if you're still committed to paying less and getting just as much, I've got great alternatives. Here's where to turn. Generation 1 Vacheron Constantin Overseas Chronometer. Yep, the original Overseas Auto was a chronometer. 1996 to 2003 with a stunning salmon sunburst dial. This is the one to get. You can get it with both tritium signature and a prior or sigma marks, so it's a wonderful relic of the late 1990s. 37 millimeters, but cushion cased. Because of the rigidity of the bracelet and the size of the cushion, it wears exactly the same on the wrist as the 39 millimeter white gold jumbo. And it features a Girard-Perregaux automatic regulated and customized by VC. Remember, the jumbo is powered by a movement that was born as a JLC caliber 920, so it's in good company here. Now, the Vacheron wins on price, water resistance, precision, and features. 150 meters water resistant and swimmable versus 50 meters with a push-down crown and not swimmable for the jumbo. COSC certified Swiss chronometer. The AP, especially since it's a veteran caliber with no seconds hand, they make no promises. And, perhaps best of all, $8,000 to $10,000 US with all boxes, all accessories, original sales invoice, never polished and immaculate. Don't settle. Shoot for an early model with the Sigma signatures and the tritium dials. Now, your alternative, if you want to stay in the Holy Trinity, but maybe you're more inclined to a manufacture movement and Geneva hallmark, though you won't be able to see it, is a Patek Philippe Neptune, specifically the Patek Philippe Neptune 5080/1A. So, wearable in a 36.5 millimeter size, and I have to thank Watch Pro site forumer Alkiro 1 for that particular wrist shot right there. This is a watch that has tons of gravitas as a steel full bracelet Patek Philippe Sportster, and it's easy to wear even on smaller wrists, which not all Royal Oaks are. I will also say that it has a devilish dial, and again, like the Vacheron, early examples feature tritium signatures, a wonderful white gold Roman numeral 12, and a railroad style minutes and seconds track. That is a gorgeous watch and a scarce one with an engine-turned bezel. All of this for $11,000 to $15,000 US, all boxes, papers, accessories, and yes, original sales invoice. You can get this watch for potentially 1/5 of what a used 5711 is going for, full bracelet and steel on pre-owned markets right now. And unlike the AP, you don't have to make friends with your AP factory store, you don't have to wait list, and you don't have to pay full retail. So, From Patek Philippe for sale to buying a Patek Philippe watch, we speak of the Patek Philippe 5170p that illustrates the perils of viewing new watches as investments. First, let me give a shout out to my friends here. I can see Christopher Peterson, Alma Scola, I can see Matt Foster, True Lie, Daniel Fernandez, Richard Atkinson, McKinley Stevens, Jimmy Ang, O'Neill, Bart K, The Watch Lounge, and Persona GC, Lavaman 233 joining from Scotland, who will be in Hong Kong next week, stopping by Watchbox Hong Kong. We're also there. Thank you. It's a very cool place. And ultimately, Chip Wong, O'Neill Miller, Marco, all my friends, Dustin Van Patten and Blue Shirt Buddha, Zeus87, Josh Beverly, and Salmon Bander. Aunt G, guys, welcome. As you can hear, I am fighting it a bit in the return from SIHH, but I would rather go down swinging than throw. The fight. So Patek Philippe 5170p and why you should not look at a new watch as an investment. A regular poster on my favorite forum unintentionally highlighted everything that is wrong with the idea of buying new watches strictly as investments. He admitted that he does not love the Patek Philippe 5170p chronograph, but a dealer has offered him one, and he thought it might be a rare watch someday. Quick review. The 5170p was launched at Baselworld 2017 as the first platinum example of the 5170 chronograph, launched 2010. As of 2019, this platinum version of the 5170 is the only one remaining in production, and some are viewing it as a terminal model intended to close out 5170 series as a whole. So this has led to speculation that, like its predecessor, the one-year-only 5070p, the Diamond Index Gradient Blue Dial 5170p, might become an instant collectible and a moneymaker for the original owner. So buying it is cool, and I'll admit that, but only if you love the watch. Now, I love that watch, and I would buy it to own, but I would not buy it to save. Here's why. If a dealer offers you a watch, here's the first thing wrong with this thinking. That means that there is, first, no wait list, and second, supply already exceeds demand. We're not off to a flying start with this investment concept. And second, buying a roughly $96,000 watch that you don't love is both bad financial planning and a terrible way to enjoy blowing your money. As a rule, every major money decision a man makes should be either euphoric or prudent, and a purchase that's neither does nothing for you. It's money down the drain. $96,000 it's safer in bonds, index funds, or even certain currencies. Hell, cash beat most U.S. stock indices in 2018. If you're looking at the watch as an investment, tons of safer and more fruitful options exist than waiting 10 for 20 years for a new watch to appreciate. And I'll also add that if you had bought the 2009 5070p, you would have seen that the watch is now worth about 183% of its original purchase price. The problem? If this day, 10 years ago, when that 5070 was new, you had put the same amount of money into the S&P 500, it would now be worth over 317% of what it was back then. So watches, especially new watches, are a terrible investment. And if you're so flush with cash that potentially losing tens of thousands on a 5170p versus a secure investment doesn't concern you, then I really have to ask why you are even stirred to action by the prospect of gaining that amount of money. If it's a pittance either way for you, you really should just be buying what's fun for you and not worrying about the investment value. And here's the thing. If you do buy it as an investment, stick it in the safe so it's mint, and 20 years from now you pull it out, you'll have spent years with the watch in a bank safe in exchange for cash that is, relatively speaking, basically chump change for you. And money goes in the bank. Remember this. Watches go on the wrist. Watches that you love, and only watches that you love. Friends, right here I can see Jan Wilhelm Koster is joining in. The Watch Lounge is with us. Rich Buddy, Daniel Carver. I can see Niels is joining us. Alexei Samola from Finland, and Edward Ledden of Sweden. Guys, thank you for joining me. And True Lie, thanks for hosting the show despite your voice, Tim. Wouldn't miss it for the world. You guys are my buds, and I owe it to a big team behind the cameras to make this show happen. So we're all in it together. Lessons learned at SIHH. There are many of them. This ain't no vlog. No more awards or rankings. Those are done. First, a tale of two cities in Geneva. The Richemont brands on the one hand and the independents on the other. Consider this. I had no trouble approaching Grubel Forsey, including Stephen Forsey himself, Kari Voutilainen himself at his own brand booth, Urwerk and their heads of state, the Grunefeld brothers, Tim and Bart, both of them at their booth for unscheduled private showings of their watches. Philippe Dufour, not exhibiting at the show, but in the Independence area, was shaking hands and greeting his fans from around the world. Again, being very courteous with folks introducing themselves on a moment's notice with no introduction. But God help you if you ask to see and photograph yet another wave of mass-produced IWC pilots' watches. Gandalf knows. He was there. The problem? If you're attending the show as a member of the general population, and some people were being barred from even entering the Richemont booths, not at private showings, but from even going into the display spaces if they didn't have press passes. Press couldn't get private showings, and a lot of members of the general public couldn't even get into the Richemont areas. You really need, especially if you're traveling to the show, and you're treating this like an auto show, to make your show all about the independent brands in the Carré des Horlogers. That's where you're going to see Ressence, Kari Voutilainen, Grunefeld, Urwerk, MB&F, Chronometrie Fernand Berthoud, HYT, Moser. All the cool kids are there, and they'll greet you like old friends with a handshake and a glass of water. The bottom line is the big brands, mostly the Richemont brands, make it an uninhabitable place on one side of the halls. The independents are the reason for going to SIHH in 2019 and 2020. I'll also mention that there were some exceptions. Cartier and JLC were very accommodating. Cartier, you were kind and you exceeded expectations in every way. And JLC, I still have some friends at La Grande Maison. Second, observation. A chill wind was blowing through the show floor. That's always ominous. An industry veteran, somebody I revere, I'm going to keep him anonymous, but he writes for a top journal, contrasted this year's show mood on the floor with last year's in the following terms. He said, last year it was euphoric when you spoke to the brand executives. This year it's tense, it's pessimistic, it's a bit grim. Now that squares with general macroeconomic prognostications for the slowing of the global economy as a whole, but it's also consistent with recent Swiss watch export reports from the FH, which is the Fédération Horlogère, essentially the trade group, the captive trade group and advocate for the Swiss watch industry. So you can see the most recent Swiss FH export report reflects a downward trend already months in progress, and that's like reading in the pages of Pravda that global progressive forces are on the decline. When Police Social Science and the Swiss trade industry's own internal advocacy both admit that things are not good, that's a sign of real problems. I don't know what happened in this industry last year other than endless high fives, but I have a feeling it's going to be at most high 1 or 2 for 2019. That will be a wonderful opportunity for watch buyers. Not so great for brands and their dealers. Now, third, the decades awaited, and this was a shock, Zenith El Primero II quietly emerged out of nowhere during SIHH. Now, Zenith had a little enclave inside, I believe it was the Kempinski Hotel. So they were represented at SIHH as a sort of pirate satellite operation. LVMH always makes themselves felt outside of Richemont's playground. But here's the thing. The El Primero II caliber that we've waited 50 years to see bowed as a press release that received almost no attention during SIHH. I had this one called for the year, but not for SIHH. So what is it? Well, it is the El Primero 50 Years of El Primero trilogy set. You get 3 new watches in 3 styles. Vintage, a re-edition of the original A386 from 1969, scanned with a laser from the factory museum, 38 millimeters in steel. You get a contemporary watch, 42 millimeters with ceramic bezel and steel case. And you get a futuristic watch, 44 millimeters in grade 5 tie. That is a trilogy edition, 50-piece El Primero Day 521. But here's the thing. The contemporary model, dubbed Chronomaster 2.0, is easily the most interesting because it is the vessel for the hitherto unannounced El Primero 3600 caliber. What's that? It's the El Primero 2. Now you're getting 50 sets only, $50,000 US, and it comes with a luxurious box outfitted like a watchmaker's bench with a hardwood surface, a magnifier, battery-powered lighting, strap tools, a special drawer, and extra spring bars. Now, all of that is cool, but it's the 3600 that piques my interest. Why? Because this is a new El Primero that comes standard with the striking 10th Foudroyant, a new 60-hour instead of 50-hour power reserve, hacking seconds, something the El Primero has never had, and a COSC chronometer certification, which I'm hoping is now going to be standard across the range in the future. This is the new one. This is the one we've waited for, and if you blink, you'll miss it. Zenith, you really need to announce these things. It's kind of a big deal. All right. I'll also mention that there's a little bit of a hint that if you buy this trilogy kit, you can be treated like a VIP at the Zenith manufacturer and get to sign an original tooling die from the old El Primero, which will go up on the wall of fame outside of watchmaker Charles Vermeau's famous attic loft, wherein the original El Primero tooling dies were hidden. So that's a wonderful perk, but intriguingly, the set comes with a fourth empty slot that Zenith expressly states is being saved for a 1/1000th of a second chronograph. That is probably what we're going to see at Basel. All right, now my main topic for tonight is going to be one that arose during SIHH 2019 and needs to be discussed because it's been 22 years of feudal churn. Sturm and Drang and Mont Blanc, the future of Mont Blanc watchmaking. Let's call it the past, present, and future. Let me be clear about the quality of the product that Mont Blanc manufactures. At its two facilities, Mont Blanc Le Loc, about 100,000 units a year, a mansion on top of a giant glassed-in factory, and Minerva Villeray, which is less than 1,000 pieces a year. The products range from good, in the case of something like the 1858 Geosphere, to absolutely great, in the case of the Holy Trinity level of finish that comes out of Minerva Villeray. Last year's SIHH Mono Pusher checked all the boxes. Steel, green sunburst dial, 40 millimeters, finished like a Patek. It was a triumph and a watch that I wanted, the watch that I most wanted to rip off from the manufacturer booth and smuggle through customs with cartel mule tactics. We had one, it sold immediately. Here's the thing. This year's models were solid across the board, especially those bearing the appellation manufacturer. Those were fantastic watches and worth their price. All of that said, my concern stems from the total lack of momentum behind the Mont Blanc watch brand. They're not new to this watch thing anymore, guys. With a luxury brand like Mont Blanc as a starting point, you would have expected they would have been off to a flying start 22 years ago. But here's the problem. The first Mont Blanc watch, the Star, surfaced in 1997, a credible gold-cased automatic ETA-based power reserve. Richemont purchased Minerva, high-end, low-volume, revered among enthusiasts, in 2006, and in 2007 placed it under Mont Blanc's internal ownership. The make-or-break watch for the brand was supposed to be the 2008 Nicolas Rieussec chronograph, and I'm a big fan of this one, the best buy in complicated chronographs. But the problem is, that was supposed to be the make-or-break watch brought to market in 2009. We're now 10 years on from what was supposed to be a seminal model. And here we are a decade later with another bumper crop of new Mont Blanc models. Too many, in fact. It's bewildering, even for me, and I do this for a living. New variants, new references, and the building impression of a feudal and furious corporate churn to make headway. Not for profits, because I think these make money, but for a distinct identity and brand equity in the Mont Blanc watchmaking. So I have no doubt that Mont Blanc watchmaking and its mammoth annual output generates a positive return for Richemont. And secondary markets really tell the tale, because while Mont Blanc is making money, you realize Mont Blanc watches on the secondary market speak to the amount of equity in the watch brand. They get slammed on secondary markets, and I also question whether even 5% of the new watch sales are able to sell without sales considerations of some kind. Finally, no brand in the Richemont Borg Cube clearly is more a victim of the Matryoshka doll phenomenon of tiered brands duplicating each other than Mont Blanc. Whereas a Vacheron model has a cheaper cousin in a JLC model, which is in turn the big brother of a Mont Blanc model. See where I'm going with this? 3 different watches from 3 different brands at 3 different prices, and frankly, I'm confused. You're supposed to move upward inside a brand, not skip between brands, and I'm not sure which one Richemont wants for the houses underneath its stewardship. No one is more a victim of this than Mont Blanc. In other words, 22 years of Mont Blanc watchmaking has left the watch side of that brand looking a little bit like the Swiss version of Nissan's Infiniti luxury car marque. And while I'm actually the solitary US-based fan of that whale-like third-generation Gatling gun headlight Q45, there's a disturbing set of parallels here. First, ineffective marketing across the board for both Infiniti and for Mont Blanc. A clear design derivation from lesser Nissan models in the case of Infiniti, and in Mont Blanc's case, too much similarity with other watches more desirable inside Richemont brand families. Ineffective dealer advocacy for the brand. When was the last time your Mont Blanc dealer reached out to you? Likewise, Infiniti not doing enough to press the flesh and build that brand at the car show collector enthusiast level, and resulting poor resale values for both Infiniti and Mont Blanc. Finally, Infiniti is nowhere near challenging Lexus, Mercedes, and BMW, and in that same 22-year time frame, let's call it 30-year time frame for Infiniti, Audi has come out of nowhere, and even Hyundai's Genesis is on the rise, which is also like saying, at this point, Infiniti, like Mont Blanc, is not clearly a contender against the brands it was supposed to run close in the marketplace. And Infiniti, like Mont Blanc, probably makes money, but I feel like the money could be better spent on making Nissan stronger, and the Mont Blanc money, I don't know, but they got a strong pens and accessories business, and I feel like maybe that's where they could have invested. Now, I'm going to come to their defense here. In hindsight, and in defense of the decision Mont Blanc made in 1997, back then, Mont Blanc became a watch brand before Panerai, JLC, Lange, IWC, Roger Dubuis, or Baume & Mercier had been bought and integrated into Richemont. And Richemont, as we know it, didn't really exist. It was the Rothmans Group, and its main interest was tobacco. So the idea to turn Mont Blanc into one of the luxury leaders for men's watches made a lot of sense. Even Cartier, the one massive luxury property alongside Mont Blanc inside of Rothmans, Cartier was known for courts and women when it came to watchmaking. The case for a mechanical men's watch in the Mont Blanc family was strong then, but a lot has changed over the years. Normally, I try to envision what a turnaround for a brand would look like, but I don't see an immediately workable solution here. Richemont has perhaps too many brands serving too many segments and price points. I love Mont Blanc's watch products, and they're the ultimate pre-owned buys, especially the Le Loc Rieussec and the Minerva Villeray watches. I want them to succeed. I really do. So Mont Blanc needs to ask a couple of questions of itself to improve the brand to the point where people respect these watches as much as they deserve to be respected. First, what makes Mont Blanc worthwhile as a watch brand? Consider the sage advice of Max Busser, who 20 years ago joined Harry Winston watchmaking from Jaeger-LeCoultre, and he asked, essentially, why do we exist? What do we do with watches that no one else in the industry doesn't already do better? The result was the Opus series. It's what we know Harry Winston watchmaking for doing today. Mont Blanc needs to do the same thing. Mont Blanc needs to ask, how many watches does the buying public want, and how can we tailor our plans to match or slightly trail that demand? Scarcity is luxury. Mont Blanc needs to ask whether the resources committed to watches over 22 years have really produced more fruitfully than the same cash pushed into pens and accessories. And finally, Mont Blanc needs to ask what it would take to make a person wait in line to pay full list for a Mont Blanc watch in lieu of a Rolex or Patek Philippe, respectively, for the Le Loc watches that would compete with the Omegas and Rolexes of the world, and the Minerva watches, which will compete with the Patek Philippes of the world. I'm not slamming Mont Blanc because I do love the watches, deeply respect the watches, and I'm an advocate for its products. Those are questions, however, that needs to be answered. And the only people who can are the people running Mont Blanc. Guys, I'm rooting for you. As a writer and a watch collector, I want your pens and your watches to be equally successful. Viewer wrist shots. Jordan keeps us rolling with Patek Aquanaut 5065 and his Aston Martin. By the way, he's borrowed times 78 on Instagram and a good client of ours, so check him out. Eduardo D forwards a father and son shot with his Breguet Type 20 and its next owner. Robert J gets photobombed. By Christ the Redeemer on location with Rolex Z Blue in Rio. And Pritham sports the PAM 292 Black Seal purchased from Armand at Watchbox. Guys, clients who forward your wrist shots, thank you for trusting our company. Send your wrist shots to mondaymailbag@thewatchbox.com to see your analog on my digital. We're giving away a watch. Link in the description. And follow me at Tim_Mosso on Instagram. Guys, thank you for bearing with me. I have not been at my best. I figured 90% is better than nothing. Welcome from far and wide. If you got up early, if you stayed up late, doubly thanks. Time out, Tim out, and thank you for logging on.